Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our pre-debate interviews here at the Munk Debate. Tonight's big contest is on the theme of progress. We'll be debating the resolution, "Be it resolved, humankind's best days lie ahead." Arguing against the motion will be Malcolm Gladwell, the author, staff writer at The New Yorker. And Malcolm, let's start just by having you unpack what some of the key arguments that you're going to put on the table tonight. Because as I mentioned to Alain Beton, I think you may be running a little bit against the current of our culture right now, where people's heads are at, the excitement around technology, the excitement around some of these big global forces that we see revealing themselves.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to distinguish between the idea that we can make progress in individual areas without necessarily being better off as a whole, right? So what I imagine the other side is going to talk about are all the specific instances where we genuinely are better off than we were in the past, and where every expectation is we will continue to improve in the coming years. And I concede all that to them. They're absolutely right. I can sit here and for the rest of this interview simply list things that I think will get better in the future. But that doesn't even begin to answer the question of whether, as a whole, all of us will be better off 5, 10, 25 years from now. And so I'm more interested in questions like, when you make progress against an individual problem, do you create additional problems, right? What are those additional problems? And are those additional problems bigger, the same as, or less than the problems you've just solved?
So atomic weapons would be a great example. We wanted to light up cities, we can blow up cities.
Yeah.
We invent nanotechnology, we weaponize it, it wipes us out. Is it that kind of dual use
Very much.
challenge that you see in a lot of technology that worries you?
And it's that as we progress in technology and in other areas, the size and the catastrophic nature of the kind of flip side grows exponentially. So for every huge leap you make in one area, you also create a huge leap in, for example, the ability of humankind to destroy itself. So it doesn't make me, I think it's important for us, for my side, not to come across as pessimists. We can be actually the furthest thing from pessimistic. My position is simply that the world is different as we go forward. And I don't know whether we're better off or worse off. It strikes me that the other side, it's incumbent on the other side to prove the proproposition. Right. I simply have to shrug, and if the audience agrees that we ought to shrug, we win.
A very French debate, no doubt. But tell us about the progress of us as people in terms of our morality, because there is an argument out there that, Steven Pinker is one of its key proponents, that somehow we're not only improving the external world, we've somehow improved ourselves. We as a species have evolved and shown evolution in ways that are progressive. Yeah.
Well, it's an argument that is, Pinker's argument, which I guess he expresses in his book, Better Angels, is an argument that is at once commonplace and also utterly beside the point. So are we better as a people than we were when we, as he put it in his pre-quote, threw virgins into volcanoes and cut people's hands off for stealing cabbage? Absolutely. I mean, but did anyone ever say that we weren't? I mean, it strikes me as being so true that it's almost a kind of cliche. But that does not resolve the question of whether in the present day the spectacular and idiosyncratic evil of a handful of individuals can make a huge difference in our life. Mm-hmm. So, we might be 99.9% of us might be better off, but the fact of the modern world is that remaining 0.01% could make the rest of our lives really, really miserable, right? It only took one Stalin to wipe out 20 million people in the Soviet Union. So even if the rest of the people in the Soviet Union were all angels, it doesn't change the fact that they suffered a very grim fate at the hands of this one dictator. So, like I said, the argument is ultimately not terribly useful in making sense of the world.
Right. Why, I was talking again with Alain about this, but the extent of our obsession with progress, from the earliest origins of Christianity through the modern era to now, our fascination with artificial intelligence. What is progress a compensatory strategy that we have to, reconcile certain expectations we have about ourselves? Or where do you think this emerges from?
Well, it's a very useful, exceedingly useful fiction, and also exceedingly useful when it's not a fiction. But to give you an example, I'm someone who's a big runner. Runners like to we believe very strongly in progress because every year we see world records fall, right? And because we see world records fall, we participate in this sort of grand illusion that somehow the running community is every year making one small step forward. We are doing better than our predecessors. Now, but the fact is, just because you run the 100 meters in 9.5 as opposed to 9.51, does that make the race any more exciting? Does it make the winner any more satisfied? Does it make the crowd any more excited? I mean, it doesn't change any of the kind of material, meaningful facts. Maybe it simply means that someone tweaked the kind of spike that you wear, or the surface of the track was a little bit different. I mean, there's a point at which I think, in other words, that we fetishize this notion of progress, even when it makes no meaningful difference to who we are.
Is it tied up, because it's interesting you mentioned running, is progress tied up in this desire to win and the great kind of satisfaction and expectation that we place on ourselves and collectively to win? We like doing it. We don't like to lose.
Well, I like that argument because it makes our opponents seem incredibly shallow and callous, which I think is a wholly appropriate reading of their motivation. And it makes me and Alain look kind of highly evolved, which I think is probably true.
Your side of the debate is progressing, their side is regressing. Well, look, Malcolm Gladwell, thank you for coming to Toronto. Thank you for being part of this debate. We look forward to the main show on stage at 7 p.m. Eastern.